Welcome everybody here tonight. We've got quite a large group in, so I hope you'll all learn from Jenny and Greg and their experiences and why they wanted to become councillors and what they feel they've achieved. This is a series of 3 webinars, so those that are interested, we'll be having another webinar in a fortnight on how to go about getting elected, and then a 3rd webinar a fortnight after that on media issues and communications. So hopefully this proves useful to anybody that's thinking of stepping up. Now, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Wiradjuri land on which I live and work. I'd like to recognise their continuing connection to the land, and to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and welcome everybody to this webinar. Now, I shall just explain who's doing what. Cam is chairing the meeting. I'm sort of operating as maitre d' or something, I don't know, letting people in, and Claire's actually behind the scenes doing all the technical stuff for us, so it's bound to work properly. And then we have Jenny O'Connor, Mayor of Indigo Shire, and Greg Conkey, Mayor of Wagga City Council. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Cam to do the proper introductions. Cam.
Thank you, Pete. Hey everyone, and thank you so much for dialing in on a Wednesday night. We're really lucky tonight that we've got Jenny O'Connor, Mayor O'Connor from the Indigo Shire. She actually is my mayor, and I can vouch that she is incredibly competent and a real champion for not only regional Australia, but climate action in regional Australia. So I'm really thrilled that we have a chance to hear from Jenny O'Connor. And Mayor Conkey from City of Wagga Wagga, Peter, has told me is also a real fighter for climate and just a very good representative and a good mayor of City of Wagga. So looking forward to hearing their stories, how they got elected, why they ran, and what sort of things they've been able to achieve since becoming councillors and mayor. This, as Pete said, this is part 1 of 3 of a Get Elected series that Farmers for Climate Action are running. We are a movement of more than 5,000 farmers and thousands more regional Australians who want to see better climate outcomes. And key to that is making sure that our governments, from local government all the way up to federal government, are responsive to the needs of their constituents. And climate is an issue that disproportionately affects regional Australians. We've seen that through the bushfires, through the floods, through droughts. And we really need local governments that are, that are on the front foot when it comes to climate. So this workshop is just part of skilling people up and giving people the tools, if they are interested in politics, to be able to run for office and make a difference. Okay, without further ado, because you're not here to listen to me, I will hand over to Jenny O'Connor, and then after Jenny, we'll hear from Greg, and then after that, for about half an hour, we'll be able to take questions from all of you who've joined us. If you clicked on the Slido link, Claire will be monitoring the questions in Slido and feeding them through. And otherwise you can just put them in the chat and I will make sure that either Greg or Jenny get those questions as well. So thank you so much once again for joining us, and over to you, Mayor O'Connor. Claire, are you able to unmute?
Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I thought Claire was doing that. Apologies. So I was just paying my respects also to the original custodians of the lands from which we are all meeting tonight. It's a really big question and a big story for me about how I got onto local government, but I'll try and keep it as brief as I can, and please feel free to ask questions about anything you want more information on. How I got elected was kind of by accident. I've always been very interested in politics, and I ran at state and federal elections for the Greens in Indi, which is a rural electorate and which became very famous when Cathy McGowan knocked off Sophie Mirabella in what was a really landslide of an election, amazing election. So I had run against Sophie for the previous 2 elections with absolutely no chance of winning, of course, as a Green. And then when Cathy stood up as an independent, I was also running as a Green again. And I will say, if you're going to keep running for elections, you have to get used to losing often sometimes. So while I had no chance again of being elected when Cathy was running against Sophie, I got very involved in her campaign, really as a supporter for her to get the progressive voters to get behind Cathy. And that's what happened. She did get elected. And in the meantime, I guess I developed a profile locally as someone that stood up for progressive issues, particularly climate change, refugees and social justice. That was my platform. So the Greens then asked me to run at local government. And so the first campaign I ran in, they actually supported me. So I had a party to support me. But of course, in a rural community, running for the Greens is not a good way to get elected because we don't get much of a vote in rural communities. And by the way, I'm no longer affiliated with any party. I haven't been now for about 4 years. But so I got elected and it was like a big deal. It was like, oh my God, we've got a Green in local government, and letters to the papers about, you know, we won't be able to use electricity and we won't be allowed to drive our cars, and she's going to make us all into vegans and all this sort of stuff, which was, you know, silly. So then what happened was, over the 4 years of my first term, I worked really effectively with all of my fellow councillors, who of course are mainly Conservatives, or certainly were in the first tranche of my 2 terms. And I guess people got to see that I wasn't doing anything crazy and that I could put aside party politics, as you must do on local government, and work for the community on the issues that matter to them. However, standing by the values I hold very dear, which of course included wanting to take action on climate change and wanting to make sure that the most marginalised in our communities are well supported. So they're not particularly radical views. So of course, over time, I was working effectively with people right across the spectrum. And so we were able to achieve things and put aside that kind of, you know, stereotyping that goes on. And so then when I ran again, I was re-elected 4 years later, and I've been mayor for 3 years of this 4-year term. So I did have a year off after I ran for state election as an independent. So as I say, very political kind of history. But local government, as it turns out, is the one where I can get the most done. And I work a lot with politicians federally and state, particularly upper house in the state, and I feel that I actually am more effective in local government than they're able to be. That is because we do have a very close connection to our communities. That's certainly not a lie when they say, you know, local government is closest to community. That's not always a positive thing if they're not happy with you. And of course that happens all the time. You can't please everyone. So it is a very personal interaction. People are not afraid to tell you what they think of you and what you've done and your ideas. But they also, it means you get a really good read on what's going on. And so over time, as climate changes, the impacts of climate change have impacted my community really severely with fires. We've had floods that have washed out bridges. We've had all sorts of ongoing issues. And we're mainly a tourism-driven shire as well as agriculture. So impact on visitor economy has been huge for us. People have sort of started to just realise that we really do have to do things. So whether it's running an organics collection with our waste management, whether we brought in a climate emergency declaration. I think we were one of the first small rural councils to do that. Again, it created a lot of sort of controversy. People were saying, well, what's the point in that and what are you going to do? But what it meant was we firstly were able to engage around the issue and get people talking about it. And then it was like, well, what can we do at a local level? Because this is high level stuff. So we have very active communities in Indigo Shire. Totally renewable Yakandanda is probably something you guys have heard of. Try. It's about supporting those groups, the grassroots groups who want to get in there and do community energy, or another campaign for us was to ban bottled water in Indigo Shire because the water miners were taking agricultural water and bottling it from, you know, farming areas. So that became a big grassroots campaign. And while we didn't win the battle, obviously there's still bottled water around. It raised awareness, and out of that, people started doing boomerang bags and no plastics and all sorts of other things at a grassroots level. So while we can't do the big picture stuff, in the everyday lives of our community, we are able to affect change in a very real way. And of course, that means we engage with kids in schools around, sustainable growing food, all kinds of things that, again, are community-led that we can support. So we don't get immediate quick gains, but we can, over time, I think, bring about that cultural change that rural communities need to do to be able to then address some of these bigger issues. So where am I up to? How much time have I got to go? Sorry, I can't see.
Another 5 minutes at least.
Oh, another 5 minutes. Okay. So, yeah, so I guess the key issues for me was that even though I started off my life as a party political person, I've long left that behind me. I think while people often do belong to political parties when they run for government, and that's fine for local government, it is important to put that aside when you get on board. I think local government is the most democratic of all the institutions that I see in government. So there's 7 of us. We represent right across the Shire. We don't have wards, but we still come from different areas of the Shire. Politically, we are really diverse. So we have people from the National Party and, a former Green, and people that are not interested in party politics at all. And we have to work together in a way that I don't see happen at state and federal politics, where everyone's in their tribe and it's one tribe versus another pretty much. So it has taught me a lot around how, if we work collaboratively, we can bring people on board, and also that our role as leaders is actually to support often what other people are doing in their daily lives. Sometimes we need to take a lead, and sometimes we need to take a stand on issues, but often it's actually about working with our communities to say, we will support you by actually advocating to state and federal governments and getting outcomes from them. So I do spend a lot of my time in the world of politics as a mayor, dealing with state and federal MPs to try and get resources that we need for our community. Clearly, we're very grant dependent in a small rural shire. We don't have a big rate base. We have a huge amount of infrastructure that we need to deal with. So the roads, rates and rubbish bit is real, and it costs a lot of money, and we have to find that money without being an unfair burden on pretty low income kind of communities. So there is a lot of lobbying and trying to get money out of people for things, but even in doing that, it's about finding the projects and the strategies that will develop sustainability into the future for our communities. So there's a lot of room in there to work on environmental issues as well as just the basic infrastructure stuff. So I don't know if that gives you a bit of a flavour of where I'm coming from in a small rural community with a very kind of diverse viewpoints right across it. We go from very progressive to very conservative, and how important it is to be able to find a way of giving everyone a voice and being a leader for all of them, even if they disagree with my views on things. That's okay. Yeah, I think it's democratic, and I think it's collaborative, and it's hard work. We've had a terrible year in Indigo Shire. We started off with the fires that impacted our communities terribly. We lost all of our visitor tourism. We then rolled straight over into the first COVID lockdown, and now they've closed the border right near our communities. We've got over 1,000 people that work across the border that can't go to work. So economically, this has been truly a disastrous year. And again, it's about having those good relationships at state and federal governments to try and get support for our community, and we're nowhere near out of the woods yet. So yeah, it's hard work sometimes. I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, thank you so much. So from a smaller rural shire to the city of Wagga Wagga, pass it over to Greg now.
Look, thank you, Cam, and I too would like to pay my respects to all the original custodians on the lands that we are meeting on tonight. And look, I'd like to thank everybody for your interest in local government. and also for the organisers of this event tonight. Local government certainly has its challenges, but it's very, very rewarding, and very rewarding to represent the community. I was elected in September 2012. I came from the ungrouped section of the ballot paper. I've never been a member of any political party, so I came from way up there on that right of that ballot paper. It has certainly, from my point of view, has its advantages of not having been a member of any political party. It means that I can deal with all politicians regardless of the party they represent. And from where I sit, that certainly has been an advantage as far as the city of Wagga Wagga is concerned. I served 4 years as a councillor. I was re-elected in 2016. Did my apprenticeship and I stood for mayor, and I was elected unopposed as mayor in 2016, re-elected as mayor in 2018, up for re-election in September this year. So there will be a mayoral election in September. However, the local government election for New South Wales has been postponed for 12 months, so the actual election won't be up until the 4th of September 2021. My platform in 2012 was to upgrade the main city levy. We had a level of protection of 1 in 60, so we needed to go up to a 1 in 100 year level of protection. The second platform was to reduce the material going to landfill, in other words, more recycling. And the third one was to reduce the dependency on electricity. And so how did I go? Well, yes, we have upgraded the main city levy to a 1 in 100 for the CBD of the city of Wagga Wagga. We also have some funds to give greater protection to the village of North Wagga, which sits over the river. There's about 700 people in that village, and they're campaigning very hard at the moment to also have the same level of protection. They have a level of protection of 1 in 8. They want to go to a 1 in 100. So we're looking at providing some extra level of protection for them. Trouble is, we can't please everybody. If we increase the height of the levy for them, it adversely impacts people upriver and also in our East Wagga industrial area. FOGO. So we introduced FOGO, Food Organics, Garden Organics, a couple of years ago, and that we're diverting about 10,000 tonnes a year from landfill. So that's a really great initiative. As far as electricity, reducing our dependency on electricity, we have a LED light program. We're in the process of converting all our lights, our main street lights, to LED, and we've also got a program to put in LED lights in a number of our civic buildings, if not all our civic buildings, and we're in the process of also having solar panels on civic buildings as well to reduce that dependency. So that has helped there. We purchased a electric car, and that's a pool car. And some of the people in the room tonight may have heard that I actually drove that car to Sydney to find out its true value. So I drove that. It was never meant to go out of the city of Wagga Wagga. However, one of the councillors challenged me to drive it to Sydney, which is what I did. If we had a fast charging station halfway, it would have made the trip a lot easier. However, managed to do it. It's a great vehicle, and we're looking at more electric vehicles for the city in the years ahead. So, what are the positives of local government? Well, the positives is that you do have a seat at the table. You, in other words, are a participant and not a spectator, and you are part of the decision-making process, and you have a very valuable vote, and you get to plan for the future. Our decisions that we're making here in the city of Wagga Wagga today will impact people for generations. We have a very large project underway at the moment, not only for generations, but for the rest of time as far as Wagga is concerned. As Jenny mentioned, you meet a whole range of people, and that's always very interesting. You get to also talk to a whole range of organisations, although COVID-19 has restricted the number of organisations that I can talk to at the moment, but you get to talk to those organisations and tell them what's happening within the city and get positive feedback, as Jenny also mentioned. You get to lobby governments, and yes, I've got to know a large number of politicians in the state, as well as federal politicians as well over the last 7 or 8 years. You get to meet other local government representatives, and you get to listen to their concerns and also the solutions that they come up with. We have a number of projects underway here in the city at the moment. Wagga has been earmarked as a special activation precinct. And I'm sorry to tell you this, Jenny, but we're taking on Victoria and also Queensland as far as attracting new industry and business to this city. And so we're coming, so watch out for us. The state government is pouring a heap of money. It's a $250 million project, and the state government is pouring heaps of money into that to reduce red tape and also to encourage businesses to set up here in this city. We have a riverside project. We live on a river, the Murrumbidgee River, and so there's a large project we have in mind to beautify a nice section of the river. And you may have heard that we have the 9th best beach in Australia. And that's an area that we're going to, I see Jenny, you're laughing there, Jenny. Amazing, all my friends down the coast are also laughing about that we have the 9th best beach in Australia. But it's true. And so we're doing a riverside master plan to even improve that beach in the years ahead. We have cycleways. We're building 43 kilometres worth of cycleways, including a cycleway on top of our main city levee, which is possibly one of the most popular cycleways come pedestrian walks in the city. It's like Pitt Street. That's a street in Sydney for you Victorians. It's very, very popular, and great views of the river and also the city as well. So the negatives of being a local government politician: you must have a thick skin. Whatever decision you make, people will criticise. I think I was in marketing before, and 8% of people you'll never satisfy regardless of what you do. The same applies in local government. So people will criticise you because you are dealing with people's lives, and you also will make enemies. Unfortunately, you do occasionally make enemies within the councillors themselves, which is unfortunate. But there's a syndrome called not in my backyard syndrome as far as development applications are concerned, and that can be really difficult when you're forced to make a decision which will impact on a person and a family and their lifestyle, and that can be really difficult, but that's why we get paid the big bucks, I guess. We have, as I mentioned, it will affect people's lives. We have a playground at the moment, which has been there for many, many years, and we put a basketball court, a little half basketball court in there. It's causing a lot of angst with the neighbour to that, and she's been complaining, and there's some mental health issues there as well. So we now seriously have to think about what we're going to do about that basketball court. That's a decision that the whole community wanted in that area, but one person's opposed to it. So what do we do? And the other thing, I'll finish on this, you have to deal with misinformation. There's a campaign going on at the moment here in the city, and unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of verbal abuse against me and other councillors as well, which is tough, but you have to wear it on the chin and try to work through it. But look, the positives, don't get me wrong, the positives far, far, far outweigh the negatives. And again, congratulate everybody here for your interest in local government, and I certainly hope you put your hand up for the next round of elections when they come up. I think that might do it. Thanks, Cam.
Thank you, Greg. And I think you've convinced all of us we need to move to Wagga. Okay, fantastic. We've got a few questions coming in already. So Greg, we'll start with you. So running as an independent, how did you garner support for your first campaign back in 2012?
I spent very little money. We had posters that I put up. I used social media. I used the local radio station, and I put a small ad in the paper. I was a little bit fortunate, I suppose. I have a media career. I've had a media career, so I was involved with a whole range of organisations in this city. So that was an advantage for me. But you still need to get that message across. I guess I was a little bit of a novelty, so the local newspaper did give me a pretty good run at that time. They haven't always given me a pretty good run, but on that particular occasion, they did give me a bit of a good run, which I appreciated. We had forums as well, so we had the opportunity for people to come along and question all the candidates. Bearing in mind, we had 58 or 59 candidates in 2012 and 56 or 57 in 2016. So a really big field.
Wow. And Jenny, we've got a few that have come in for you. The first one is, so those Conservative voters that were a bit worried about your election, have you won them over? Do you think they now respect you as mayor and as a councillor?
Yeah, I think being in the role of mayor, you're often in the community in a very a different role altogether than a politician. You know, you're there often in a ceremonial role, perhaps, or to chair, a community event, or to award things, or, there's lots of that role as well, apart from the sort of strategic stuff. So people get to see you playing, if you like, a different role in their lives. And I think that people respect that role. So they may not agree with me on a political issue, but I think by and large, people who would once have said, dismissed me out of hand as, oh, she's just a green or whatever, I don't want to know about her, now will see me at an at Anzac Day, for example, where I, of course, I'm incredibly respectful about what that means for people, and will, have made speeches and done things around events like that, or perform citizenship ceremonies. And it's this huge honour to be able to do that in your community, I might add. So I think what happens is people start to see it as a mayor, and probably more as a mayor than just as a councillor, but you nevertheless see that you do play a role as a leader in their community that is quite separate to whatever our political views might be on things.
Fantastic. And Caitlin, I can see you have your hand up. We'll just go through a few more questions and then I'll come to you as well. This one was originally directed to Jenny, but I think it can probably go to both Jenny and Greg. Neither of you had experience with being a councillor before you were elected, I think. What kind of experience do you think a councillor should have prior to running? Jenny, you first and then Greg.
Well, I mean, as I said before, I think we're a very representative group. I think one of the things that I value about local government is that we're not career councillors. People come from all walks of life. They have a very big, different, broad range of experiences in different facets of our community, and that's important. Unlike, as I say, state and federal politics, where you tend to get career politicians in the main who've worked their way through the system in their parties, in local government it's not like that at all. They're just like you and I. We're just ordinary community members who put our hand up, often for a reason. As Greg said, he had a campaign on an issue. That's often the thing that will stimulate people into running for local government, because they feel really strongly about a particular thing that's happening. And so people come from all walks of life. I think that's fantastic. I would say to people, don't be put off by the idea that you don't know anything about it. You learn on the job, and you get taught. You actually get training. And it's like any new job. You walk in the door not really knowing what you're doing, and that's okay. People learn. You are mentored. You're supported, and you also have a team of staff that work with you. You really want to support councillors. So yeah, don't be afraid to have a go. That would be my message.
Look, Cam, I was fortunate that I did have a lot of experience as far as local government was concerned. I was in the media, newspaper, so I used to cover a local government. I've been covering local government for 30 or more years. So I'm not quite sure which is the dark side, the media or local government. But I certainly saw it from the media's point of view, and spoke to on a regular basis to councillors, staff, the mayor, and what have you. So I did have that background. I've now realised how very, very little the media knows about local government and some of the issues that we've been dealing with. That's probably another side to it. So, you certainly, my learning curve went up as when I became a councillor, and then when I became mayor, it just skyrocketed. The difference between a councillor and a mayor is quite substantial. The amount of, in our position, it's in the City of Wagga's position, it's a full-time position, considered full-time, not supposed to be full-time, but it is a full-time position. You do work odd hours. This is an easy night for me, so you can work through until 11:30 at night. And of course, weekends, a fair bit of work at weekends as far as organisations and things. People want for the mayor to turn up for their event, and it's nice of them to invite the mayor, and try to get us to as many events as I possibly can. Bearing in mind COVID-19, I came to a grinding halt. No doubt Jenny did as well, as far as community interaction was concerned. But it has been a sharp learning curve, and don't think I'm across it at the moment. I've still got a lot of things to learn. But Jenny was right. I'm surrounded by some really talented people. We have an excellent general manager here in this city, excellent directors, and the senior staff are brilliant, and as well as the other staff as well. So we're very blessed to have a really good team of people there to assist when needed.
And Greg, you sort of touched on a question that a number of other people have asked, so I'll ask both you and Jenny this one as well. So how many hours do you sort of put in as mayor? And considering if people are running, they're probably not going to become mayor straight away. What's the expectation as a councillor?
Look, as a councillor in Wagga, you could expect to spend between 10 and 15 hours a week on council-related business. So that's not only attending workshops, council meetings, but briefings as well as reading. I think 1 month, this was last year, I worked out 1 month I had 3 nights at home in the whole month of June. That was June last year, because it's all changed this year. So I had 3 nights at home, and I think 2 of those nights were the long weekend. So look, the number of hours, it's a great honour, it's a great privilege to serve, not only as a councillor, but a great honour and privilege to serve as mayor. It's a short-term project for me, or a short-term proposition. So happy to spend as many hours. People like, they don't work 9 to 5, they work out outside those hours, and you make yourself available. So certainly it's not 40 hours a week, it's much more than 40 hours a week, I should imagine, outside of COVID-19.
And Jenny?
Yeah, in a small rural shire, which again, our total population is 16,000, and we've got sort of 5, our biggest town has 3,500 people in it. So 32 little communities, all of them want you at everything. So you can imagine the demand can be enormous. For councillors, as a councillor, I worked as well as being on council. I probably did about 10 to 12 hours a week. Apart from council meeting weeks, which are always heavier. There's agendas. We had a 1,200 page agenda at my meeting last night. So it can be enormous in terms of information and what we're dealing with. There's a change in Victoria in the Local Government Act. We're dealing with that sort of stuff. So there's kind of, that side of it, which is tedious. Frankly, it's not my thing. I'm not interested in legislation around, meeting procedures or whatever, but nevertheless, I've got to do it. And then there's the community aspect, and then there's the strategic, that aspect of it. So some weeks, you work 7 days. Others, I can, this week hasn't been too bad after last night and tonight. Tomorrow's not looking too busy. So it's quite flexible. I quite like that. I don't like a 9-to-5 job where it's the same every week. I like the fact that it's really different. Lots of variety, and depending on what's going on, if the bushfires are threatening your town, you're on 24/7 till the threat's gone. Like that. That's just how it is. So if you're coming in at a councillor level, I agree with Greg. I reckon somewhere around 15 hours a week. And some councillors are much more engaged than others. I have had experience of councillors who I would be surprised if they did 4 hours a week, frankly. And that's the nature of the beast. They're doing other things that it's not where their focus is. And I think you need to have a fair commitment to do this. But I do understand that we don't just want retired people on council. We also want people that are actively working as well. So we're pretty flexible with each other. We support each other in that way as well. If someone's working and they can't get to something, someone else will do it for them. So there's a fair bit of teamwork in that as well to help us all manage the demands.
Jenny, and someone just asked a follow-up. So as a time poor person, would they be better off becoming a councillor or sort of contributing to the local climate action group?
If you're really time poor, I would say don't take on council, because you'll actually feel like you're not doing a good job if you can't contribute to the level you want to. But yeah, so I mean, of course you can be involved in community in all kinds of ways. But yeah, if you think you can put in about 12 hours a week and you can do that as well as work, then sure, go for it. We've got a young woman on council, which was the first time we've had someone under 50, I think, elected. Or under 40. I think I was 45 when I got elected. But anyway, Sophie's 26. She's got 2 small children. She actually was pregnant and had a baby in her second year as a councillor. Breastfed the baby in the chamber. This is all completely new for our rural shire. It's a really big learning curve for some of the older boys on council. It was great. And she's done a fantastic job managing small kids and being on council, and she's very active. So I think partly depends who you are and how you manage your own life, I guess, but take it into account for sure.
And what type of community activities were you involved with prior to running? Greg, I might start with you and then go to Jenny for this one.
Okay, where do I start? I was in Apex for quite some years. I've been in service clubs, so Apex followed by Rotary, and I'm still a Rotarian. I was involved with drug and alcohol committees. So I was chair of the drug and alcohol group from the base hospital. I was involved with life education, which is for those in New South Wales, I don't think it's in Victoria, I don't think, but that's for drug awareness for primary school children. I was involved with radio, local radio. I was involved heavily with a number of newspaper activities such as Outstanding Business Awards. We organised through my newspaper a Christmas food appeal, a number of things like that. So that's a few of the organisations that I was involved with, and I try to keep well, I'm still a member of Rotary, and I do as many of the projects that I can as far as we do have markets. So I'm rostered on those markets. So I really do that. I'm in a community band. I'm in a community choir. It's and you make time, although you just spend all these times. You try to keep Tuesday nights free for choir, which is in recess at the moment. Thursday nights free for band, a community band that I'm in. And my EA knows that I've got these activities, and so it really has to be a very, very special event for me to miss up on those opportunities. You need to have a work-life balance. Yeah,
for sure. So I'm a different beast to Greg. I haven't been involved in some of the sort of more formal service groups and those things. When I was first running, I was a single mum of 3 kids. So I was working, and when I was first elected, I've since partnered, and I have a very supportive husband. So, and the kids have left home. So life's really different now. But at that 8 years ago, yeah, my family was a very demanding. I was working as a community health nurse. And so work and family was kind of really took up most of my time. But through that, of course, I was involved with the school. I was on school council. I was involved with all sorts of like that sort of family level activity that we often are involved in. And then politically, I was pretty active. So yeah, probably a different sort of background to Greg. But again, in rural communities, I mean, you're involved in all kinds of ways that are not necessarily a formal group either. So, you know, I think, as I said earlier, I think the more diverse our backgrounds are, the better. I think it's great that we've got these really different sort of engagements, and we bring all that to the table when we're representing our communities. So I don't think you have to have any particular pedigree to run for council.
And Jenny, one for you as a regional council, someone who's just returned to the area. How long had you lived in the region before you ran, and how do you think that someone needs to live in a community for a while before they run?
I think small rural councils are probably a different beast. You know, they're very, it's who knows who, it's who you recognise. When people vote, they tend to vote for someone they know well from their own small community. At the last election, we had a few people ran who had not been in the area for long, and they just didn't get anywhere. And I'd been here for about 10 years when I ran, so you know, and I had kids at school and all that sort of stuff, so you know, you're known in your own local group community. I guess I think it's harder to get that profile if you're not from the area and you haven't been there for long. Nevertheless, if you're running on an issue that's really important to that community and you're taking a position on that, and that's something people are voting on, you may well get elected. So and also people have a few goes sometimes, so you might put your hand up this time and 4 years later you've got a better chance even if you didn't get in, but you're known for having run at the last election and having opportunities to be out in the community as a candidate.
And Greg, I'll go to you first for this one, but then Jenny afterwards. Is there anything you learned in your first year of local government that you wish you had have known before you started, and it would have made you more prepared for the role?
Look, Jenny mentioned how many pages she had at her council meeting last night. Our very first council meeting, we had 600 or 700 pages. I was all at sea. And on the very, very first meeting, we made decisions on that night, multi-million-dollar decisions about tenders. I think there was $3 or $4 million worth of tenders that we approved on that night. I was guided by the staff, but there I was thrown into the deep end and making multi-million-dollar decisions on the very, very first night that I attended a council meeting. And it really was mind-boggling. You know, you get to realise that, hang on, this is part and parcel of the job. That we have a budget over $200 million is our budget. We have 70,000 people in our city. We have 600 or 700 staff members. It's a huge organisation. So I guess I wasn't quite across how big the organisation was, how many things that you had to deal with on any one night or over a 12-month period. Not only was it development applications, but planning and things like that. I had to learn very fast all about local environment plans and development control plans and all these state government plans as well. So you need to get across that. So it's a very sharp learning curve, and I was ill prepared. I don't know if anybody could be prepared. You've got to get in there and learn the hard way. So I don't know whether that's exactly answered your question, but there was it is in our case a very large organisation and a lot of responsibility, and a lot of people are impacted by the decisions that we make.
Yeah. Well, look, similarly, I didn't understand a lot about meeting procedure and about the sort of, you know, the nuts and bolts, if you like, of council meetings and that sort of thing. one of the things that's happening in Victoria now is with the new Local Government Act, candidates will have to do some formal training before they even nominate now, which is a new thing. And then there's a lot of resourcing being put into training councillors, because exactly as Greg says, from the minute you walk in the door, you are responsible for some very significant decisions, and and no one is really prepared for that. I think that's a fair comment. Unless you've worked in that world, you couldn't possibly know all of that stuff. I've been in council for 8 years now, and I've been a mayor for 3, and I'm still learning. Like, it's a very complex kind of world that we are in local government, and I think that's okay. Like, no one expects you to know it all either when you come in the door. And I think that's why I mentioned before, the organisation is there to support you as well. So I don't want to put people off by saying, you won't, you'll be out of your depth. You will, of course you will be, but you'll also get support, and there's going to be training available in Victoria. And you're usually on with other councillors that have been there before you, unless everybody got tipped out. And so there's a fair bit of just that general mentoring and support that I found was really great. People were really, really helpful to me. So yeah, don't let it put you off. But I think it's like anything. It's okay not to know stuff too. It's okay to say, look, I haven't done this before. I don't really know. My background is not finance. It's not those things. And we have to do that work. So I've had to learn a lot about that and do training, and that's fine. Like, I think that's, it's been interesting. It's been great.
Jenny, I've got another one coming to you.
Mm-hmm.
Does the function of the council plan restrict you in responding to changing community needs?
Restrict me? No, no, because we develop the council plan. That's our first job. And in terms of what do you do when you first get on council, I found that really challenging, because I knew about my patch, but I didn't actually know a lot about a lot of the other communities that I now represent, because I've never seen them or met them or been to them, because I lived in a different town. So the council plan is when you actually develop the plan for the next 4 years, and it drives the budget decisions that you make. It's a strategic plan, and it therefore, the organisation adopts it, and then that's what they work to. That's how they decide their capital works program, all those things. So you come in representing the issues that you're bringing to the table. Fortunately, it's not all on you. There's, however many of you doing it together. There's a previous council plan that you will refer to. But we tipped out a lot of that, and we actually put in stuff that was quite innovative and new for Indigo Shire, and that was a great opportunity. So that is why we've been able to do a lot of the strategic stuff, which Greg mentioned a lot of it before. I didn't talk about it when I started off, but yeah, lighting upgrades to LED, all that sort of stuff. We've done a lot of that work too, and that was because our council plan actually required us to do it. It's been a guiding thing for us, and we develop it. So it's great to get in at that level.
Great. Greg, a very different type of question for you. Can you tell us how you made use of social media to help with your election?
Yes, I used YouTube and I used Facebook. I had a little bit of help here because I'm not an expert on those. So those are the main things. I also use Twitter, but not as much. So that's probably all changed now. TikTok is something that probably everybody should use. We've just done a video for that to launch our next year's Mardi Gras, and they've got me doing a bit of a jive, and it's not pretty, I can tell you. Don't bother going to search for that, because fortunately there's only a couple of seconds of me doing this particular dance routine, and fortunately I've saved some people some grief. But it's but yes, look, there's a lot of social media out there. It's the mainstream media has like our newspaper circulation here, city of 70,000. The newspaper circulation for the Daily in 1969 was something like about 17,000. It's now around about 5,000 or 6,000. So the influence of newspapers has declined. Radio is still reasonably strong. Community radio is particularly strong here in this city. So don't discount if you want to do that community radio. social media, it's you just need to put up posts and things like that, and put regular posts up as well, and answer the feedback that you get. But bearing in mind, not everybody's going to agree with you, and you'll get a lot of criticism up on social media as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. And just aware that we're running out of time, so I'll just ask 2 more questions. Sorry that we haven't managed to get through all the questions tonight, but there have been some really good ones. Greg, I'll direct this one to you. How do your councils invite community input to policy decisions, and how do you consult with your communities?
Okay, so all our plans go out on community consultation, so they go out for 28 days minimum. Sometimes we've got one at the moment, a very large one, $180 million project that's been going out now for 3 months, I think. So we do put all our policies and some DAs out there for public exhibition and public feedback. So we do have forums as well. We haven't, COVID-19 has restricted it, but we have a number of villages that surround the city. So we do go out and councillors go out and speak to those villages. So we have an hour or 2-hour session, and so the village people are invited to come along and tell us their concerns. So that's how we have an online forum where there's over 100 people who can contribute to a whole variety of things that Wagga City Council does. We're now engaging more with our community than we ever have. Having said that, people still say we didn't know about certain things, and we're saying, how else do we need to communicate with you? How else? What are you watching? You know, maybe we should go on Netflix or something or other. I don't know what they're watching these days, but we're engaging, as I said, more and more with the community. We've never engaged more with the community, but the community is still sort of saying, well, hang on, we didn't know about that decision, or we didn't know something else is coming up. So I'm not quite sure of the answer, how we get across to everybody, but we do use all the mainstream media, and we use all the social media as well. So we have quite an extensive communications team. We also have 4 pages in the newspaper every Saturday. So that's 4 pages of news, council news, which is quite popular.
Fantastic. And Jenny, this one's coming to you. Can you elaborate on the disclosure rules which councils are bound by? This person says, it seems frustrating to come up against this, and as a result, our councillors are essentially gagged on a whole range of issues.
Sorry, I'd need a clearer question. Disclosure rules regarding, we have to disclose lots and lots of things. I wonder, is that a New South Wales question or a Victorian one?
I'm not sure, actually. We might let that one.
Yeah,
I'm certainly happy to answer.
I think it's a New South Wales thing. Yeah.
We have to declare if whatever. So if we've got a development application that we have an interest there from, if we have a friend or we've got a pecuniary interest in it, we have to declare that. We have a disclosure form that we have to fill in each year. So also pointing out to our immediate family and their connections within the community, what businesses they may belong to, and we need to declare that at the beginning of each meeting. And then if it's a significant pecuniary or significant interest, we have to leave the meeting while that's being discussed. That would be the Victoria.
Sorry, same. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, exactly the same. It's a conflict of interest. And again, the new Local Government Act has expanded that because it's quite specific at the moment. So they've expanded it out to if any reasonable person felt that you were being compromised or biased, therefore you have a conflict of interest. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Fantastic. Brett and Deb from Moruya Heads just said their councillors in Eurobadala aren't able to talk to their constituents on a range of issues. So obviously that.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I mean, that's the whole point of being on council is that you engage with your community and your constituents. So I would say it'd be good to get some new councillors on board in your part of the world. Put your hand up.
Excellent. Okay. We are right on time, actually. So I'd just like to thank Greg and Jenny so much for coming along tonight. So good, such a wealth of information. And I hope you all, everyone on here has sort of come away thinking that they could also do it and run for local government. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Greg. And don't forget next webinar. So in 2 weeks' time, Wednesday night, we've got Ruth McGowan, who is a local government expert, going through the nuts and bolts of how to actually set up a campaign and run a campaign. So you're very welcome to all join that one as well. And if you have any questions, can Jenny and Greg, do you guys both have Twitter accounts that we could put in Slack so people can follow you and send you any questions?
I do have a Twitter account. I've been on the front page of the local paper for what I tweet, so be prepared. I don't hold back. Yeah, please do follow me on Twitter. Look, if anyone's really interested, particularly the Victorian Council in running, please give me a call. I'm really happy to talk it through with you in terms of your own situation if you want to do that.
That's amazing. Jenny, I'm going to post your Twitter account in the chat on the side. And Greg, are you able to do it? Because I don't know yours, unfortunately.
Look, I don't use Twitter a great deal, but look, people can get in touch with me through Facebook or just email me through the Wagga City Council. Very happy to answer any questions, very happy to receive phone calls. Everybody in Wagga's got my phone number, obviously, if I'm getting phone calls at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, but please don't ring me at that time. But if you'd like to, please get in touch. I'm very happy to answer any questions at all.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Bye.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Jenny.